Restarting a new project, and basically the project is to paint this wood piece underneath the Dodger, and there is actually some on the aluminum piece here that needs paint as well. So basically the steps are going to be scrape and sand the piece here and scuff up the remaining good paint, and then prime and paint the whole thing. So I'm only going to be touching up what needs to be done, as the rest of the boat coach roof looks pretty good. So let's get started. Okay, we're going to get going on removing some of the paint. So basically use whatever tool you need to remove the paint without damaging the wood underneath. So I usually will use a chisel or a scraper to do the job, and then I will sand it down. I'm going to start off with some 60 really heavy sandpaper to give us some tooth, and then like feather it out with maybe 100, and then we can start painting. I'll put the primer down, and if necessary sand the primer, and then we can put the paint on top of that. So those are the overall steps, so let's get going. So let's use the scraper, actually the chisel, and then I will loosen some of this paint. The goal is to keep working back till you get to some fresh wood, which is probably going to be somewhere around here, because I can actually see it bubbling, and then work our way and inspect the entire area. So I'm not going to bore you with how to do this, but I will do this off camera and get back on the next step. Okay, we're back. It's a little update. I did scrape all the loose paint on the starboard side here. It actually looks like it stops right about here, so I'm not even going to touch the wood on that side, maybe just sand it and paint it once I get it all done. So it looks like the damage is like just in this area. So I did notice that some of the wood is actually a little punky, so that's water damage. So what I think I'm going to do, instead of just priming it, is at least the bare spots here I probably will just encase in some epoxy to strengthen the wood and to give me a good surface to paint on. So I will do that. I will continue to remove the punky wood and sand back everything so as I have a good surface, so I can start putting the epoxy and then paint on. So just a little update. Okay, we're back. I sanded everything and I pulled out all the weak wood. So we do have a few problem areas here. So what I'm going to do with this is basically encapsulate it in epoxy. So I'll put some epoxy on just to seal it, and then I'll put some thickened epoxy on to give it some structure. That should keep this from getting damaged any further. And then once this is all built up to be even, then we can think about priming it and painting. So let's take care of the problem area first, and let's work from there. So let me go get some epoxy. Okay, I mixed up some epoxy off camera, and it's unthickened, it's just regular epoxy. So I'm just going to paint over all these areas, basically just to lock the fibers in place, and then I will come back in like an hour or two and put some thickened epoxy in the holes. So it's just a matter of, that's pretty much it. Nothing too fancy. And you can almost see it getting soaked into the wood. And this is African mahogany. You can see how dark it gets. just need to let that sit for like an hour or two, and then we'll come back and put some thickened epoxy in the holes. Okay, we're back. So it's been a couple hours since I put the first coat of epoxy on. So it looks like it dried nice. And I'm going to be applying a thickened epoxy. As you can see, this is really thick, even thicker than peanut butter. So, because I don't want it to deform after I put it on. So, plus I want to shape it. So, because basically this is going to be fake wood, effectively. So let's put it on. See how we do. Actually, let me put some tape on there. So. So basically I'm just applying it to the holes, filling it the best I can, and then I will try to smooth it the best I can, because this filler that I put in gets really hard, and I want to make sure that I have minimal sanding, because it's very difficult to sand after the fact. Basically lasted sandpaper, it's so stiff and smooth that is really difficult. Okay, let's get a closer view so you can see how I filled in all the holes with this thickened epoxy, and it's effectively like almost like modeling clay. It's really stiff. So so I guess we can let it sit. I'm going to let it sit for a week, because it'll be a week before I can get back down here, and then we will move on to the next step. Okay, we're back. It's about a week later. The epoxy has dried really well, so as you can see, it's like really smooth, exactly the way I left it. So no sags or anything, so that's good. So it's got a few high spots that I need to take care of with some sandpaper. And then we will get going on putting some epoxy primer on these bare spots, and then we will sand the entire thing, and possibly this aluminum piece here, I may sand that down and just paint the whole thing. Really depends on how much paint I have. I may end up having to buy some paint, because I don't think I have enough. I was originally just going to paint this strip here, but you're going to see the old paint and the new paint, and it may look kind of crappy, so I'll just do the whole thing. I'm not going to do the whole coach roof, but I will just will do the aluminum piece, which ends here. So that's where we are now. Okay, I'm going to use the same piece of sandpaper I used the other day, 60 grit, just to knock down the high spots here. Okay, we're pretty much done with the sanding. I sanded everything that I coated with epoxy, and now what I'm going to do is sand everything to give it some grit, so I can, for when the paint goes on. But these areas I'm going to put epoxy primer on, and these aluminum areas I need to treat with some chemicals to get the paint to stick, so I will do that. Okay, before we prime, I need to treat the aluminum first. So the only areas that are exposed will be right here at the end here. So what I'm going to treat it with is two products. One is Bondrite CIC 33 Aero. It's like a cleaner to get it ready for paint, and then after that dries, I'm going to use the Bondrite MCR 1201 Aero, and that will give it some corrosion inhibitors, and then we clean that up, let it dry, and then we can prime everything. So hopefully that'll be enough to keep this from corroding again. So let's go ahead and apply the CIC 33 Aero. You mixed it up. I mixed it up about 3 to 1 maybe. So put in a little tub here, and basically I'm just going to keep it wet. There's really not a lot of damage here, so I didn't really need to make the product too aggressive. So you dilute it, so if you needed it stronger, you could have diluted it a little stronger, but I didn't find the need to. So now the game basically is to keep this wet for about 5 minutes, clean it with water, and then we can use the second product. Okay, we're ready to wipe this down. So I have some clear water in here, and I wipe down this and keep it dry, and then we can apply the other product. Okay, so now we're ready to apply the second product. This goes on full strength, and then again I think you let it wait a few minutes. I don't need to dilute this, so I can just pour it on the rag. And supposedly this is a corrosion inhibitor, so I used it when I painted the boom, and it's lasted a long time without any problem. So I don't know if it's snake oil or it really works. Either way, I'm doing it. Okay, so we're done with that product. So now let's rinse that with water as well. I'd be really generous with the water to get all the product off. Okay, so now the aluminum is treated. So we're going to let all this dry to be bone dry before I apply the primer. So that's what we're going to do. So we'll be back. Okay, so we're mixing up the epoxy primer. It's white, so it'll help blend in with the white paint that we're putting on. So I put the appropriate amount of primer and activator and thinner, so we can brush this on when we get up there. I did the entire coach roof with this paint in primer, and it really is really nice paint. I'm really happy with it. It levels out real nice, so you can brush it on and you get a sprayed on like finish. So that's pretty much it. I gotta mix it up a little bit, and then we have to let it sit for like 15 minutes, and then we can put it on. Welcome back. It's probably been a couple weeks since the last edit. So what I'm going to do here is basically I'm going to sand everything. The primer is dried nicely, so I got to sand everything, the entire piece, and I'm actually going to sand this aluminum top here, and I'm going to lightly sand that. So I will paint everything including this aluminum piece. If for no other reason, I did have some bare area that I want to take care of them, so really not that much more effort to paint the whole thing. So I will lightly sand this piece and that piece. I'm not going to show that. I think most people get the concept of how to sand. I'm probably going to use, I don't know, maybe 320 or 220, whatever I have on hand here. Give it a little bit of a key, and then I will mix up the two-part paint, and I will roll it on, and I roll the aluminum piece, and then I will brush on the wood piece. Okay, I mixed up the paint. I'm going to let it bake for a few minutes, and it's got to kind of chemically bond with the activator for like 15 minutes. So while that's doing that, I sanded the top here, so this will be all ready to take paint in a few minutes. So that's where we are. I sanded it, taped it up, and we're good. See you in a few minutes. Okay, we're back. The paint's ready. So let's put it into the tray. Yes, I'm going to brush it on with a chip brush. The small area shouldn't be a problem. And again, this is a two-part paint, so it does have to be mixed. So let's go ahead. I'm not even bothered masking the deck because it's the exact same paint, so I'm not overly worried. Okay, let's move on to painting the roller. So I like using these foam rollers. It puts on a nice thin coat, nice and even. Okay, we're all done painting. Kind of hard to tell, but it's shiny now because it's wet, but it will dry to a satin finish. So the only other thing I need to do is, once this is dry, maybe this weekend, I need to caulk the where the deck meets the wood piece. So I just need to caulk that. Paint's dry, it's the next day. It looks really good. I will give it a second coat. I wasn't going to, but I can definitely tell it. I can see through the paint in a couple areas, so definitely warrants a second coat. I mean, it's really tough, but needs a little more coverage. So I will do another coat. I will not film it because it'll be exactly the same as the previous segment. So okay, the paint is all dry. Got the second coat on. Looks stunning. So I painted all this and the little wood piece here. So that's all done. So I'm real happy with that. So I guess that'll wrap up this video. Glad you could join me. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.